Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of our new series, Traxon EQ Talkabout. I'm Julia, and I will be your host today for the webinar about the Manchester Metropolitan University School of Digital Arts project. I am pleased to inform you that we have invited special guests to our call today to discuss this exciting project with you. Joining me in the call today, we have Darren Worley from Traxon, our UK partner manager, who will also be moderating this call. Ed Vickery from Studiotech, one of our Traxon UK partners, who are responsible for the delivery and implementation of this project. And also Steve Willby, the project architect from Field and Clegg Bradley Studios. And you can say the vision behind this project. Please feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A box, which should be in the top right of your screen. These will be discussed after the webinar. And of course, you can ask anonymously if you wish. And also, we will contact the winner of the prize draw after the webinar ends. And also, today's meeting will be recorded and will also be published to our social media channels. So that was everything from my side. I'm handing over to Darren now.
Okay, thank you, Julia. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. Those that are joining live and those that will join at a later time to see this back. So the first thing I'm just going to quickly cover is those of you that don't know Traxon EQ. Who are we? So we are a manufacturer of LED lighting solutions, and we've been around for roughly 25 years now. Our Traxon brand is the LED lighting side of things, and then our EQ brand is our control systems. And we get involved in all sorts of projects. It's quite an exciting industry to be in. We go from architectural projects to entertainment projects, creative artistic projects, so it's a really great great role to be in. Because our systems are largely more complex than a standard functional lighting project, we need partners, and roughly 9 or 10 years ago we started a partnership program. So we have loyal, very skilled customers that we call partners, that we fully train up on all our hardware and software, and these guys basically are magicians for us. They take over the project. They will supply our gear, they can install it, they can commission and program the systems, they can create special bracketry and housings for our luminaires that are not standard. And yeah, these guys are full solution providers or system integrators. And yeah, the partnership program is going from strength to strength, and there's a lot of trust there as well. Yeah, one of our top performing customers, top performing partners are Studiotech, and Ed, the director of Studiotech, joins us today. So I'm going to hand over to Ed just to give you a little insight into Studiotech.
Cheers, Dazza. Okay, so who are Studiotech? It should be a question that's the easiest to answer, really, but it kind of isn't because of the breadth of our offer. So most people will know us as architectural lighting and controls specialist, but that's actually significantly broader than just sort of that sort of pigeonhole. So we're known for we've got quite a broad encompassing aspect of AV, stage and theatrical, entertainment, and we cover all these bases by utilising a network of partners. So Traxon being one of our key partners, and we, in essence, as Darren suggested, we utilise these manufacturers and actually integrate them into a project. So we bring the technical know-how. We've got electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, CAD specialists, controls programmers, and that allows us to take manufacturers' products and integrate them into a project. We all know the world of lighting and controls and AV is getting more and more complex, and that falls right to people like ourselves to allow us to deliver these into projects and realise the vision of the design team. So Very briefly, we started in 1989, so we're going for a wee while. We developed from signage contractor, so although it seems like a far cry from that now, we carry a lot of that DNA through from that world. So it started with signs, and then it progressed. The sort of pubs and clubs, which a lot of people on this call probably familiar with that world in Manchester in the 90s, and then that progressed sort of quite organically to the neon, and then the LED revolution brought about this sort of explosion of opportunity for us. So that kind of sums up Studiotech, and one of the best projects that we've done utilising the skill sets that I've mentioned is definitely the MMU SODA building. So probably best now to pass over to the visionary, the man who designed the scheme, and that's Steve.
Hi everyone. Can I just say before now, I didn't design the whole scheme. I was part of a much bigger team, so I don't want to take all this glory. But more than happy to present this. Ed, we had a really good working relationship with Ed during this building, and when Ed asked, "Can I help out on this webinar?" more than happy to help out and show you what we did. I'll give you a very brief overview of the scheme. It's for Manchester Metropolitan University, and it's SODA stands for the School of Digital Arts. And essentially, it's an art building for everything to do with the screen. So students will go in and they will design films, they will design apps, they will design games, they will even design, I went in the other week and they were designing the heads-up display that would go on your BMW, so you show you how fast you're going. And then there's the sound that goes with that, the sort of coconuts that can make the horses hoof sound, you name it, it's all done in this building. The problem we've got with a building like that is it doesn't need many windows. There's an awful lot of black box spaces, and it can be quite a sort of boring facade. We've also got an issue where we want to celebrate the students' work. So how best do you do that? Digital building, digital screen, I mean, it made absolute sense to us. So what we did at the outset is you can see on this very early concept model, we took our building and we moved it so it covered an existing road, and what that did is the white piece that's on the building, which we actually can now call the nose, was right in front of this 150-meter long vista to another building. And in the future, this is going to become pedestrianised area. That's going to be the main thoroughfare for Manchester Metropolitan University. And it gave us this huge sort of 25-meter by 8 facade. We thought, oh, what can we do with this? So obviously, let's see how we celebrate the students' work. Let's look at it as a screen. And so early concept visuals showed this screen. Yep. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so it showed this screen with the pedestrians, with work being displayed on it. And as we refined this idea, what we desperately didn't want to happen was this to be an area where so often in city centres you might have a mute screen where people are watching BBC 24 or Wimbledon. It's not that. This is somewhere to sort of celebrate students' work. And because of that, we were able to sort of take I think quite basic technologies we were looking at and sort of utilise them as much as we could in with the fabric of the building. We're also sort of very, very keen. Sustainability is a massive driver in all of our work, and there's an issue with a digital screen we were always conscious about. That's a huge sort of high resolution digital screen on the front of a building may consume far too much power. So we worked out what the PV array on the roof, the size could be, and from that we engineered the size of screen that was needed. So you see on this front elevation, this early view, there's a red box at the top. So given a traditional sort of screen pitch of between 40 and 50 millimeters, that's how big our screen would have been. So what did we do? We took the same number of pixels, so no more power output, and we stretched them, as you would do on the sort of Christmas tree and fairy lights. So that same number of pixels, rather than filling a space about 5 by 4, now fills a space. It's probably in its entirety about 60 meters long, where it wraps underneath facades, around cheeks of buildings, on the top. And we were able to modulate the pitch, so we've got areas of higher density, lower density. On the sides of the building, we articulated the building so it poked out slightly higher than surrounding buildings. So it's designed to be a beacon and a marker. So as you approach this building from different angles, the screen becomes seen. Other very important thing that we wanted to do, we didn't want this to look like a screen that was on the front of a building. So when it's turned off, you just see a black screen. So we articulated a language. Conceptually, we were thinking of your iPhone, you know, sort of very sort of nice silver box with a black screen on the front, and you don't see the join between the silver and the black. And we looked at some sort of conceptual methods of how do we do that. And in the end, there was an idea of putting these LEDs behind a black perforated metal frame. So the way the architecture works, this was the design and build contract. So we did this. It went to the design and build contract with the architectural intention and ideas. Kia then took it on, and Kia then approached Studiotech to say, how do we do this? And this is where I'm going to pass back over to Ed to tell you how he did this.
Thank you, Steve. So yeah, absolutely. This is where we then brought in Darren. So obviously in terms of the product that was required, it's actually specified a different product, but because of the quality of the Traxon equipment and it's the economic viability of it, it allowed us to get this product specified. And yeah, that's when we basically ordered it from Darren. I think Darren, you want to say a few more things about the arc-shaped dot and its performance.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So obviously Ed and Studiotech know the full offerings that Traxon have, and the arc-shaped dot lent itself very well to this project. One of the reasons is because it's very flexible. It's always made to order for each individual project, because every project has a different requirement in terms of pixel pitch, you know, leader cables. It could even be the housing color and the color of the cable. So it's very customizable. It's also very cost effective as well. So it's not going to break any budgets. It's got a larger light surface as well. So when you're creating these screens with larger pixel pitch, yeah, it's much better to use a larger light surface dot. So you see the picture there where you have the large diffuser dome over the LEDs. So this creates a large homogeneous pixel, which works perfectly and integrates very well into these building materials and building facades. So yeah, I think that's where Ed thought that this product would fit very well. So yeah, I'll hand back to you, Ed.
Cheers, Darren. So yeah, the installation, that was quite fun. So imagine 8,500 dots of LEDs that needed to be installed on a facade. Quite a few complexities with it, obviously given it's external, given the height of it, getting it all uniform. It was quite a task. So Mark, if you just jump back a wee one, that was actually our office. So yeah, don't be too afraid by the people on the left. That isn't their typical attire. It was during COVID times. So yeah, that was them assembling all the dots onto some aluminium panels. So in order to get that, get the uniformity of light and ensure that it is in perfect lines, we bought a lot of aluminium panels. So I think it was 120, 130 3 meter by 2 meter aluminium sheets. So we got those powder coated because obviously, as Steve was saying, they wanted that black box look. So during the day, really the lighting, it's so discreet, which is one of the major benefits and major, one of the reasons why this project looks so great. So as you can see on the left hand side, the image there, those are the dots at 300 mil. 300 mil pitch. In the center, they're at 100 mil pitch, and it's going through a test program there. And then on the image on the right, you'll see them actually in the stillages that we manufactured to allow them to be transported to site. So again, you can see there that 100 to 300 mil pitch, it perhaps doesn't sound a huge amount of difference, but the density difference there is absolutely huge, and that's where we get the two different, the high res at the top of the building and then the lower res at the base of the building. So yeah, then when it came to installation, these quite difficult to maneuver panels. So Mark, if you jump to the next one. Yeah, this was our guys on mast climbers. So these panels, just say 120 odd panels, were put onto a tower crane, lifted into position, and then affixed onto site. So I'm slightly trivializing the work of the guys and what they did. There was a huge team effort from the cladding contractor Maple, Kia, as Steve mentioned, Dodd Group, who did all the mechanical and electrical, bringing us power and data to the right points. In essence, we had a lot of the similar type of thing we had to fix to a building. So 120 panels with lots of LED dots on, and they got affixed to the building profile. Then after that, the cladding contractor affixed the mesh over, and that's when we end up having the next slide, which is the completed shots, which shows the lighting on and then the mesh panel in front. So as you can see, all you can really see there is the impression created by the lighting. It looks fantastic during the day. There's very minimal cables visible. It's always been very well considered in the architecture and then the mechanical and electrical design to ensure that this media facade isn't a typical one, and it really isn't. There's media facades aren't the most difficult ones to do, but they're very difficult to do well, and this is something that this project does. It really delivers on. It is one of my favorite projects that we've done, and that's because it just works so well with the architecture, the functionality. That's a major thing that you can see here, that we've spoken quite a lot as a company about control. It's one of our major USPs is our ability on controls, and what we've got here is something that is quite unique. A lot of the time we do projects similar to this, and the control system doesn't get utilized to anything like what it should do. We've got an incredible control system from EQ that can be programmed to do almost an infinite number of things, and occasionally it gets left. This is basically the antithesis of that. As you can see, there are some images from recent programs here. So you've got Diwali, you've got Black History Month, and that's actually been organically done, dynamically done by users of MMU. So that's another way in which you can keep this fresh, and they can very easily upload their own content to this, meaning they don't have to bring experts back in, and they can be very flexible and dynamic and ensure that this incredible feature doesn't get tired, which is what happens to a lot of projects. They look fantastic on day one, but then much later down the line, there's no investment in it, and it kind of does the same thing day in, day out, and people stop even looking up at it, and that's a problem that we've encountered on quite a few projects. But this one is completely opposite because of that engagement from the client, the control system we put in, and it allows them to create this content organically, and when you're walking past it, it'll be doing something different than it did the day before, and that's one of the best things about this, certainly.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. It's very important that, you know, what Ed's touched on there is you have these projects that spend, you know, a considerable amount of money on beautifying their building, and a lot of the time it's the same content day in, day out. This really is a true interactive facade that is changing excuse me, day by day, reacting to events around the world, celebrations, times of year. It really is fantastic to see a project like this in the UK, because we don't have many projects like this in the UK, you know. So I'm really proud of it, and I'm really proud of Studiotech and the team and everyone involved. It really is a fantastic project. I think we're nearing the end of our part, so do we have any questions? I can see a few coming in now. So Ed, this one's more addressed to you. What were the main challenges you faced during the installation?
I think it's perhaps the scale. That's really the only thing that, not the only thing, but it was certainly the scale, because all those panels, they needed to be, the logistics of it, they needed to be located somewhere, and then you've got to CNC cut 8,000 odd holes for the dot to fit into. So in sort of, when you broke it down into sort of bite-sized chunks, that's how we had to do it, because the scale was quite quite vast, really. You know, it's a busy populated area of Manchester, and you've got to somehow affix 123 metre by 2 metre aluminium panels onto that building. So probably logistics and scale really were the main challenges to it. As I say, in terms of complexity, it's not the most challenging one we'll ever do. It's one product, which is the arc-shaped dot. In terms of the lighting, was one product, which on most of our projects there's various types of lighting. So it just needed management. You know, there had to be someone who was going to be commissioning every single dot. So they got pre-commissioned prior going to site for testing purposes, obviously, and also they needed to be given their DMX address. So that had to be done. It had to be sequenced. It had to be, obviously, the logistics needed to be managed quite carefully. Transport getting to site had to be there at a certain time. So I've got to say, it went incredibly smoothly, and that's testament to the team, really, of Dodd Group and Kia, that really made it quite a smooth process of something that could have been quite challenging, really. So, yeah, I'd say it's probably only really the scale of it that was the significant challenge.
Okay, thank you. Next question, which you did touch on a little bit earlier. So what control features does the facade have, and who is responsible for renewing the content?
Yeah, so we basically, and again, I'm going to embarrass myself here because I'm not a programmer, but we basically had a EQ control system that was linked to a digital signage player. So that we then, one of our clever people, created a patch or some whatever it's called, and then that allowed we provided the MMU and the students with the detail that they needed, the format that they needed to create their content in. So they would create it in a format that they could then upload to the system. We've obviously generated the framing for it, and then they can upload directly to the system. So yeah, immediately they can display images, videos. They did a competition, the students did actually, within a few weeks of the install happening. Somehow, again, goodness knows how, but obviously they're digital, specialist in digital computer science and that sort of thing, and they created things like Tetris, which is quite an amazing thing to see. So I think that was one of my favorite ones that we've seen. So yeah, in essence, the client manager entirely, they have come to us to look at other developments like interactive. So we're hoping at some point we're going to be developing some more interactive content, such as physically being able to do Tetris on the facade and things like Pac-Man. So that's in development. It's not yet there, but the infrastructure's pretty much, the control system would be able to do it, but it's just us working with the client to get that the interactive element done, because I think that would be absolutely amazing if we could, on an iPad or a tablet or something, be able to actually play Tetris on that facade. I think that'd be something quite cool.
Great, thank you. So we've got a few more questions coming in. Again, for you, really, Ed, how important was the partner relationship between Traxon and Studiotech during the development process for the success of the project?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty is that we've known Traxon for so long that we, in essence, know so much about the product, the equipment, how it goes together, that, not wanting to trivialize your involvement at all, Darren, but we kind of, this is why they have partnership, because we come to know the product inside out. So obviously liaised with Darren, worked out what we could do, what was a viable alternative to what had been specified, and we actually put something forward that was significantly brighter and more economical. So we worked together to devise that and what would be the best to go to the client with. And then after that, we kind of take on that mantle of the supplier. We're the specialist, so we in essence, obviously maintaining that contact with Traxon, but we in essence take it over, and that's what Traxon get with Studiotech, is that they have the product. We have the knowledge of how to integrate that into a project. So we in essence take ownership of a project, and pretty much go from there. So that's how the relationship has worked. Particularly the longevity of the partnership means now that we know the ranges inside out. So the technical support that we needed in the earlier days is not quite as extensive as it was.
Yeah. And then another question. This is for you, Steve. So, how much input did you have from the client on the design side of things?
A massive amount of input from the client. I mean, this was complete collaboration between ourselves and the client at the outset. We always wanted a screen, and obviously budget was an issue. We couldn't spend too much money, so we went round the tracks looking at how we could achieve something that had wow factor. At first we were worried about the low resolution display of it, but by working with the team at the Digital Arts School, they were very much of the opinion that not everything a student does needs to be ultra HD. Students should be learning in all mediums, so actually to give another medium, and in this instance the low res, was absolutely perfect for them. We did a lot of work, and Studiotech really helped us with the interface that Ed touched on. It was really important that this was easy to be used. It wasn't scary for the students. In the end, what's happened is the school have appointed a curator for their gallery space, and they call this their outside gallery. So they've got an art curator for the inside, and it also looks at the outside, and they're responsible for uploading the students' work. So it's not the Wild West. People don't just put stuff on randomly. It is moderated before it goes on, and also just this sort of freshness, because it's so easy, we're keeping it fresh. But on the rare times where we haven't had it, the university is just very keen to sort of use it, and we've got a whole series of I call them holding patterns, to do them as a disservice, but there's art installations which go on when there's nothing else, that just helps articulate the facade. There's a beating heartbeat I saw recently, that's just when the building's at rest, this facade just pulses. So I think it was extremely lucky for us. We've got this screen on a perfect location, 150 meters away, with the absolute perfect client whose job is to storytell through digital medium. Oh,
fantastic.
It was a dream project.
Yeah, I think that's just on that. I think what Steve says is absolutely right. Then the narrative that's created by this screen is what's so special about it. That there are a lot of media screens. There are some that are a bit in your face, that are a bit much. The beauty of this one is that it has a narrative. There's a story behind it. It's not just plonked a load of lights onto a building and light it up to promote the building. There's a lot more than that, and I think that's the storytelling ability with it, and the narrative behind it is probably what makes it quite a unique media facade, and yeah, one that we're all really proud of.
Thank you. So I am conscious of time, but one last question before we finish off. This was probably more towards you again, Steve. Was there a consideration for light pollution, light spill during both the design and the installation stage?
Absolutely, there was. It was a very strong worry of the local planning department, what the light spill would be. I mean, this is mostly a student area, but there are sort of student halls of residence directly opposite this screen, and we didn't want them sort of woken up by sort of bright orange lights at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So two things were done. One was planning set some time constraints on us, so that this screen can't be operated past, I think it's 8 o'clock in the evening. The second one, we employed a team of specialists to look at the light spill at the early stages, and they did a whole set of initial design work for us just to show that the light spill from this would not negatively impact the environment. And I mean, during the day we do tone the screen down, and that's part of the software, so it's not as bright as it can possibly be, and at night we can ramp it up slightly.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Fantastic. Because that's all we've got time for now. But Steve, Ed, great stuff. Thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to hand over to Julia just for final comments. But thank you everyone that's joined, and everyone that will join and watch this back.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. Thank you all for participating today and listening to us. I really enjoyed today's meeting, and I hope you did too. And wishing all of you a lovely day.